In the late 19th century, the ocean was still a place where survival depended on instinct as much as skill. There were no satellites tracking storms, no instant radio signals calling for help, and no guarantee that a ship lost to the horizon would ever be seen again. Sailors who crossed vast stretches of water accepted a silent truth, that the sea could demand choices no human should ever have to make. Among all the stories born from that era, one stands apart not just because of its tragedy, but because it reshaped the way the law itself understood survival. It began with 4 men, a small yacht, and a journey that seemed ordinary at first. By the time it ended, the world would be forced to confront a haunting question: can desperation ever justify taking another life? Before the voyage even began, the name Richard Parker had already woven itself strangely into maritime lore. Years earlier, a sailor bearing that name had been executed after leading a naval rebellion. Later, a fictional adventure novel featured a character with the same name who met a grim fate at sea. When yet another Richard Parker stepped aboard a small yacht in 1884, no one could have guessed how history would remember him. The vessel was called the Mignonette, a modest yacht barely 52 feet long. Unlike the massive merchant ships that usually crossed oceans, this craft was built more for coastal sailing and leisure. Yet a wealthy buyer in Australia had purchased it, and someone had to deliver it across nearly 15,000 miles of unpredictable ocean. Captain Tom Dudley accepted the responsibility. He was known among sailors as a disciplined and capable leader. Years of experience had hardened him against the unpredictability of the sea. Alongside him were Edwin Stevens and Edmund Brooks, both seasoned seamen who had endured storms, long watches, and the constant rhythm of life at sea. The youngest member of the crew was 17-year-old cabin boy Richard Parker. Though he came from a family familiar with sailing, he had never faced a voyage of this scale. Excitement mixed with anxiety as he stepped aboard, eager to prove himself among older, more experienced men. On May 19th, the yacht left Southampton under clear skies. Early days passed with almost idyllic calm. The sails filled with steady wind, pushing the vessel southward along the European coastline. The men settled into a routine shaped by watch shifts, navigation, and maintenance. Evenings were quieter moments, shared meals, and the soft creak of wood beneath the stars. Richard worked tirelessly, eager to learn every task. He watched the captain closely, memorizing knots, studying charts, and absorbing lessons that only experience could teach. Though young, he showed determination, and the older sailors began to accept him as part of the crew. Weeks went by with little trouble. Occasional storms appeared, but passed without serious damage. Confidence grew. The ocean seemed almost welcoming, a vast blue path guiding them toward their destination. But the sea rarely remains gentle forever. By early July, the yacht sailed far from land, thousands of miles from safety. The weather began to shift. Dark clouds formed low on the horizon, and the wind strengthened with an uneasy rhythm. Captain Dudley ordered the crew to prepare the yacht for heavy seas. They adjusted sails and secured equipment, moving with practiced precision. Late one evening, as waves grew larger and the sky darkened, Dudley instructed the crew to perform a maneuver designed to steady the vessel. As the men worked under lantern light, Richard was sent below deck to fetch tea for the captain. Moments later, everything changed. A towering rogue wave surged out of the darkness and struck the yacht with tremendous force. Wood splintered, the hull cracked open, water rushed in faster than anyone could react. Dudley knew instantly that the yacht was doomed. He ordered the men into the lifeboat. There was no time for careful planning. They grabbed what little they could, 2 small tins of preserved turnips and a navigational chronometer. Within minutes, the Mignonette slipped beneath the surface, leaving 4 stunned survivors alone in a fragile dinghy surrounded by endless ocean. The lifeboat was never meant for such an ordeal. Its thin wooden planks flexed with every swell, and during the chaotic launch, a small hole formed in its side. The men took turns bailing water, aware that even a minor leak could mean death. When the storm finally passed, the horizon revealed nothing but emptiness. The first nights were filled with fear. Waves lifted the tiny boat like a toy, and at one point a shark circled beneath them, nudging the hull hard enough to make their hearts race. Exhaustion crept in quickly as they struggled to stay alert. For 2 days, they had nothing to eat or drink. Eventually, Captain Dudley opened one of the tins and divided the contents into tiny portions. Every bite was rationed carefully, each man receiving only enough to keep hope alive. Hunger gnawed constantly, but thirst proved far worse. A moment of luck arrived when they spotted a sea turtle drifting nearby. After a difficult struggle, they managed to pull it aboard. With no fire to cook it, they ate the meat raw, grateful for the strength it provided. Yet the relief was temporary. Soon their supplies were gone, and the sun continued to beat down relentlessly. They tried desperately to collect rainwater, stretching bits of cloth to catch droplets that never came. Some of the men began drinking their own urine, believing it might help them survive. Instead, it worsened their condition. Richard Parker suffered the most. Weak from illness and inexperience, he struggled to endure the unbearable thirst. One day, unable to resist any longer, he drank seawater despite the others' warnings. At first, he felt relief. Then came violent sickness. His strength faded rapidly, and he collapsed at the bottom of the lifeboat, barely able to move. The remaining 3 men watched helplessly as his condition worsened. They themselves were growing weaker by the hour. Thoughts became slow, movements heavy, and hope began to fade. It was during these desperate days that Captain Dudley spoke of something rarely discussed openly, an unwritten maritime tradition known as the custom of the sea. Among sailors, it was whispered about in stories of survival, invoked only when death seemed inevitable. The idea was horrifying. In extreme circumstances, one life might be sacrificed so that others could live. Edmund Brooks rejected the suggestion immediately. Edwin Stevens hesitated, torn between conscience and survival instinct. The conversation ended without agreement, but the tension lingered. The following morning brought no rescue, no rain, and no sign of land. Richard lay motionless, appearing close to death. Dudley argued that if the boy were already dying, his death might prolong the lives of the others. Traditionally, such decisions required drawing lots so that fate, not choice, determined who would be sacrificed, but Dudley believed circumstances made the decision obvious. Silence filled the lifeboat. Hours passed under a merciless sun. Eventually, hesitation gave way to action, a moment that would haunt all 3 survivors for the rest of their lives. Days later, after drifting for nearly a month, a distant ship appeared on the horizon. A German vessel spotted the tiny dinghy and changed course. The survivors were pulled aboard, weak but alive. The crew of the rescue ship quickly realized something terrible had happened. Captain Dudley did not hide the truth. He explained everything openly, convinced that his decision had been necessary. When they finally returned to England, authorities were informed. What followed shocked the sailors. They were arrested and charged with murder. The case captured public attention immediately. Newspapers across Europe debated whether desperation could justify such an act. Many citizens sympathized with the sailors. Inside the courtroom, however, emotion gave way to legal argument. The central question became whether necessity could ever excuse the taking of an innocent life. The defense argued that the men had acted to survive. The prosecution insisted that allowing such reasoning would create a dangerous precedent. Ultimately, the court ruled that necessity could not serve as a defense for killing another person. Though initially sentenced to death, public pressure led to their punishment being reduced to a short prison term. The case became a defining moment in legal history. More than a century later, the tragedy of the Mignonette still raises difficult questions. What would any of us do in the same situation? Would we follow tradition, leave the decision to chance, or refuse to act even if it meant facing death together? The ocean has always tested human nature in ways few environments can. It strips away comfort, forces impossible choices, and reveals the fragile line between survival and morality. And perhaps that is why this story endures, not because of its horror alone, but because it challenges us to consider what it truly means to survive.